Cynthia.
Actually going to compare and contrast two different ways to start a painting. Okay, so I'm going to start with this image. That's the reference image.
All right.
Just clamp it up above, and we're going to go. One
Okay,
painting.
move your camera up a little bit so we can see both. There we go. Good.
Okay. One painting will be the way I paint, palette knife painting. The other painting will have a more traditional approach. You can see I'm starting with a mid-tone value that is on the black and white scale. It's a mid-gray, and that's very often how a more traditional painter would start a painting. I'm
All right.
actually going to take a rag and wipe out a little bit of notes for myself for lights and darks, and that's where it's at. I use rags for wiping my brushes and knife.
All right.
So I'm going to my palette, and I'm going to take a little bit of Prussian blue, purple dioxazine, and I'm going to sort of sketch in the structure of this painting.
You have such courage.
And I'm going to, because this is a really short time, I'm just going to block in some of the darks while I have this dark color on. There's a bridge coming across here. Generally speaking, this is the sketch for my painting. Now, even though I'm
Took you so long.
Yeah, well, basically, I will do the same with my orange surface. I use orange because I like the excitement. So structurally, basically, I've got the same deal going. But I'm not going to immediately go to the dark values. I just need the sketch, the idea.
Okay. Yeah, people watching from the Netherlands, from Austria, Pakistan. Wow, we got a big audience today. Thank you, guys. Spread the word, share it so others. New Zealand. Hello, Hazel. Coming to New Zealand. We'll tell you more about that soon. All right.
Okay, so now I'm really going to start to say, okay, I need the branch coming across. This will not be a finished painting, certainly not in half an hour, but at least people will see the process. This would be the more traditional way if I were doing something more representational.
Now, I got to tell a story about you.
Okay.
When you and I first met, you came to Fall Color Week, my retreat in fall. And I saw this woman who was standing out there, and she had two paintings on her easel. And she was looking one direction and doing one painting, and then looking the other direction and doing the other. And I had only ever seen anyone else do that once in my life. And you were just knocking it out of the park. And I came up to you and introduced myself, and the rest is history. We became great friends.
That's how we met. So now I'm going to go into this piece and get some of my lights in. So I have the mid-tones, I have the darks, and I'm throwing in a few lights.
All right.
Okay. As you can see, I'm not overly concerned about color because this is just the base layer. I'll deal with the color later on as I build the painting.
Can I ask you a silly question?
Go for it.
All right. So some people watching this, like our friends in London and our friends in Poland who are watching right now, are going to say something like, well, why bother even to have that tone on the canvas if you're going to cover it up?
Because it gives you the mid-tone. Your canvas initially comes white. I mean, nowadays you can buy already toned canvases. You can even buy black ones. But working on a white surface, then you have to figure out the whole range of values. And most of your painting is going to be a mid value. I use orange because I paint a little bit differently. You consider it abstractly. I think it's a little more post-impressionist, but which covers abstraction. But I like how I find orange to be exciting when I paint blues, and a lot of landscapes have a lot of blues and greens in them. So for me, the orange is exciting. Okay, So that solves the mid-tone issue. I have my darks. I don't have my lightest lights yet. I can take, right now I'm using a titanium zinc white, which normally I'd mix my own titanium zinc, and I can brighten up these whites a little bit because paint molecules bounce against each other. It's still picking up some of the sub color, and my brush is not super clean because I'm not worried about that right now. This is just blocking in. Anybody who does theater, you know that they figure out where actors are going to stand in order to relate. This is where the objects in the painting are going to be. So I'm going to grab a little bit of orange from my palette, knowing that there's some orange here. And I'm going to work a little bit more in the brush piece as I go. Throw a little bit of orange in here because there's some in the image. Throw a little bit of orange here to remind me the leaves are there. And this is how I would begin a more traditional painting. There's a little tree in here, which I actually do want. So I'm going to throw that in, and I'll just keep building the painting. Now, this is where I have fun. My painting, it's more about the dynamics of the subjects, the image that I'm looking at. It's not a portrayal representationally. It really has to do about the dynamics. So I'm going to pull up my palette knife.
I was just going to ask, do you always use a brush in the beginning of your palette knife paintings?
Just to block it in. I'll do
Yeah.
that. I obviously brush in my orange tone, but to block in, because I'm using a brush here, I probably blocked in a little bit more, but just so people can see. In my mind, all I would have to do is this curve, this arc here, which a lot of the British painters would use to help keep the viewer into their painting. I mean, corners are fairly irrelevant. You don't want somebody stuck in a corner. Western culture, we read left to right. And so we're coming in the painting here. If I'm cityscape with a road coming in, then we'd read bottom top. But in a landscape, we're attuned to a horizon line that cuts across. So that's here. But no, I would not do this many lines with a brush if I'm out in the field.
All right. If you guys have questions, put them in the comments. I'm happy to share them. Got a
Absolutely.
lot of people today. I was out. I don't remember. Was it last year, the year before in the Adirondacks? You came up, and I went into the woods in this one spot where all the Hudson River school painters painted, and there you are in the woods with a what would you say, 40 by 60?
I think it was a 3 by 4. It might have been a little larger. I don't know. The painting has sold, so, and I'm not really good at keeping track of all that stuff.
Yeah, but it was giant. It was, here she is painting a palette knife painting in the woods, this giant painting. I think you worked on it for 2 different days, if I remember correctly.
Actually, I learned a lot, and that's what I do with most of my paintings. That's what I hope to do. Because I had just come back from some plein air event, came up, did not have the right solvent with me. And so what kept happening was my paint was drying on me faster than what I wanted. And so I did have a problem. I actually went back 3 days, but it was a real struggle.
Yeah.
So now I need, now I'm aware that I need to have more of the solvent. So with my painting, when I have a color that's in the image on my knife, I will move it around.
Yep.
You want your viewer to move around the painting. And there are times, I mean, I love the palette knife, though I must say, I want to do some glazing. So I may even go into some acrylics, but I'm going to take some south with me when I go for an event. But yeah, so now what I do need to do is start to really pick up some colors. And I
Here's a
will let the orange show through.
here's a question from Andy Gonzalez, who says your darkest dark is made up from what colors?
Right now, this is just Prussian blue and purple dioxazine.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so if I want to go more of I mean, I don't carry black. I don't usually carry greens, but there are so many pretty colors on the market
Oh, I know.
that I
I know.
can't help but buy
I
some.
like pretty colors.
Yeah, me too.
Hello to the Lake District in England. Francis, welcome. Unisa from Pakistan. Shabuha from India. I'm sorry, I probably botched your name. Unisa is asking, what solvent do you use?
This is so for the palette knife. I mean, there are so many beautiful colors. All the different manufacturers really make some stunning colors. For the palette knife, the paint that I found was the most dense was the Gamblin. So I use the Gamblin products, and I use Gamsol and Galkid mix. But in really cold winter, the solvent-free gel works better. I actually had a Facebook friend from out west. We've actually painted together. Tell me about the solvent-free gel working better in the freezing temps.
Yeah. I use the solvent-free gel exclusively. I've taken solvents out of my life entirely. I don't even use it to clean brushes because I just don't want to take any risk with my health.
Right, but don't you find that it's awfully slippery in the heat? If you paint in the heat, I have found that my paint slides all over the place.
I don't because I'm very, very, I put very small, minimal amounts in, and sometimes I don't even put it in. Sometimes I just paint with
Paint right
paint.
from the tube. Yes.
Yeah. And that comes down to having something that works well from the tube. And it depends on the color, right? You know, when you got browns, they kind of they dry real fast, they get clunky, and you need to thin them out.
Right. So I will say, as I'm doing this, it is me painting. Um, a lot of painters, instead of moving around, they will block in one area more than another. So I am taking some liberty, partly because I know we're pressed for time.
Yeah, well, I'll probably give you a little extra. Um, there's another question. I'm wondering, this is from Catherine Bagby in New Mexico. I was wondering why zinc titanium mix as opposed to one or the other.
For the sake of speed during this demo,
Oh, I
it's
see.
a medium white. Zinc has more transparency. It's less dense, and so the true color of the paint you're mixing it with comes through. I know in my workshops I sometimes do a demo. Well, this is blue with zinc. This is the same blue with titanium. Titanium is very dense. It's opaque. It really lightens a color, but it also grays the color more. So I'm actually going to, as I'm building this, sorry. But that's why. And if I use a zinc titanium mix, it's a shortcut here. I don't take it really if I'm going to go and paint seriously, then I will take both. If you're painting alla prima, which means all at once, like what I'm doing right now, so I'll probably end up scraping these down. You don't really have an issue with the integrity of the zinc. But if you paint today and the painting dries and you come back to it next week and you try to use zinc over your base, well, the zinc does not breathe as much and it's going to crack. It's more brittle a paint. So there's a whole big deal about zinc not being great for that use.
You also have to look at your tubes because sometimes it will say it's titanium white, but it's really a titanium zinc mix.
Right, but I asked Michael Harding, I asked Gamblin, I asked number of manufacturers. Actually, at the plein air convention, maybe my first year there, and they said today's zinc is so well made that you don't have much of an issue. But as I said, it is more brittle. So over time, you will get tiny cracks in the painting if you paint, with layers that are some dry and some wet.
Here is a question from Kalika, who says, since titanium white cools the mix, does zinc white also cool it?
Not as much.
Okay.
Not as much. These are great questions.
Yeah. We have a great audience. Pat yourselves on the back and give Cynthia a thumbs up or a heart while you're watching, and make sure you share the broadcast so other people can tune in and find it. All right. So in case you just tuned in, Cynthia is showing two ways to start a painting, and one is she's doing a brush painting, the other is a palette knife painting, and she's doing them simultaneously. All right.
Doesn't mean they'll be great.
They're always great. You have such a great feel for things. They're always great.
Okay, I've just been getting a little more paint on the surface. For me, getting the paint on the surface of the palette knife painting is a large part of the battle. I mean, these are smaller boards than I ever use. I don't like painting this small. And I've gotten a little bit more color in here. And now I'm starting to define the trees. I'm taking the brush and I'm really going to start to look at them and figure out where I really want them. And get a bit more definition in, using a smaller brush as I go. I am not really including this branch here because we already have
Horizon.
whole bridge structure. We don't need that repetition. It doesn't add anything to the painting, so I'm taking it out.
All right.
I like the curves against the straight lines, so I will start throwing slight curve, just sort of a note to myself to make sure I will get it in at some point. Since I'm not planning on finishing these paintings, it's really just a demo. I'm not overly concerned about being exacting. This will be minor. I'm ignoring that branch that's fallen on the ground. Oh, wrong painting. I sometimes do that if I do more than one at a time. Okay, I need to get some of the greens in here to add life to the painting, and some of these soft colors that are in the background. I also need to get some nice clean white. In fact, I'll do that right now. Let me wipe my brush and get some good clean white. This is where I would definitely use titanium, only titanium, in a real painting. I would not.
Pure white, no color mixed in.
Correct. I know some people say, oh, you can't use pure white. It's like, yeah. And some people say you can't walk backwards. Forget it. Well, you know me, Eric. I don't worry about the rules, so to speak.
Well, there are no rules, and you're a rule breaker anyway. But I mean, people say don't use black. Some people say don't do pure white. You just do whatever feels right.
You do what the painting. You step back and you look at your painting, and your painting's going to tell you what it needs.
Yeah. Yeah. The minute your paintings start talking to you, it's about time to have yourself committed.
Well, but you know what I mean.
Of course I do.
Anybody who's painted enough knows that there are times where you don't worry about what you're looking at painting plein air. You look at the painting and say, okay, is this balance working? Is this blend of color, these two colors juxtaposed to each other? Do they they work. Oh, I did use the knife on here. Sorry, folks. I'm just so used to using the knife. But yeah, so I want some of the nice clean whites. Now I know this white in the stream actually has some warmth to it. But I'm not worrying about that right now. I can always add that, and I want to also make notes for these rocks. While I have the palette knife, I'll take a more muted color, and I want some sharp edges here. Am I going to worry exactly where the rocks are in the photo? Absolutely not. You know,
Well, the one thing that I think that beginners fail to understand is that your photo reference is just a reference. It's not designed to be copied exactly, and you can move things around as you wish. Move trees, move anything.
totally. Absolutely. If you're painting the White House, unless you feel like abstracting it, well, then it should look like the White House. If you're doing someone's portrait, I mean, Gertrude Stein sat for Picasso hundreds of times, and it actually took him many, many years. She didn't get that painting for years afterwards. He just never considered it finished. And then finally, he gave it to her. But if you take a look at that portrait, I mean, it's abstract. It doesn't really look, but maybe the eyes do. So I just took a pile of paint. I mixed a bunch of odd colors on my palette, because if you mix the leftover paint at the end of the day, you're going to get gray. So
Yep.
I just mixed a gray, and I will take a brush and get some gray on here. I want to lighten it a bit and cool it down. So I'm going to add a little bit of blue and a little bit of alizarin to cool it down. I have enough orange in it that it keeps wanting to be warmer than what I want. So I'm going to add some of this coolness around here.
All right, I'm gonna conduct a dangerous experiment. Cindy, I'm going to apologize in advance.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Okay, so you guys in the comments, your preference so far, the one on the left or the one on the right?
That's a great experiment. What's
fun? One on the left or one on the right? Let's find out what they say.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because, some people prefer kind of dark, moody paintings, and other people prefer bright, colorful paintings.
Actually, I gave a online workshop on tonalism, and I had more people attend that than I think almost any other workshop.
Yep. Well, I know John McDonald's videos sell almost more than anything else because he's dealing with tonalism.
Right.
Well, it's split down the middle right now. Got a lot of left, got a lot of right. I don't know. Maybe Amadine can tabulate them as they go. We'll figure out who's got the winner.
Okay. So right here in this painting, it's a bit of a mishmash. I will have to decide what tree. I mean, right now there's one, and this really wide one in the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verticals. I don't want 5 verticals. All it does is confuse. So I will have to make my own sort of artist decision, so to speak, with that.
Tell us why you don't want 5 verticals.
Too many lines. It's overwhelming.
Too busy.
We don't need 5 vertical lines to say, hey, there are trees here. Okay. We need this tree. That's a major one because of the arc here. we need this one that goes off because it plays this nice triangular shape, which then feeds into here. And then this repeats a triangular shape. So there is a play that goes on between these two. But all these straight vertical lines, totally unnecessary. So, that's the kind of thing as I step back and really take a look at the painting from more than a foot and a half away, I will make a decision. But in the meantime, I had mentioned getting a little bit of the green in, so I will do that and just get a little bit more space filled up.
All right.
So I know we're probably sort of running out of time, but as I said, it's really not about finishing these. It's
about demonstrating. Yes.
Right. Oh, that's a pretty green. I'm going to put some of it here. Here. I want more of that. I want to bring the viewer around. May not be here in the painting, or in the photo, but it's going to be there in my painting to help wrap the viewer around. There's a tiny bit of green right here in the water. I'm not worrying about it right now.
All right.
But it's sweet. So,
I think we have a politician in our midst, needs to run for office. Kelly McKinley Hansen says, I like the tone on the left, but the bounce on the right.
Well, there you go. So yes, my paintings, that's a great word for it. My paintings do bounce. They're about, for me, the fact that everything's always changing and nothing stays the same. So I like that, but I love the phrase bounce. Whoops.
Yeah. Hello, Finland. Hey, I'm going to come over there and paint Finland. Let's do it. We'll all go to Finland and visit you. Hello, Jordan. Welcome.
I had reindeer liver in Finland once upon a time.
Well, let's find out if it's true. Maybe Finland will tell us. All right. This is exciting.
Okay.
Now, this is probably the first time anybody's done two paintings simultaneously on the same show.
Well, as I say, rules are made to be broken, whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to try that. I've never done it. I think I'll do that. Maybe I'm going to go paint bluebonnets this weekend.
Oh, lucky you.
And turns out there's a giant antique show. It's one of the biggest in the world called Round Top. Turns out it's going on this weekend still. And they have bluebonnets up that way. So I'm thinking I'm going to go do both. Maybe see if I can find a good antique easel.
Well, the easel that I'm using right now, I've got 5 easels set up in my studios right now.
For workshops, or just because you're always working on multiple things?
Because I'm working on multiple paintings.
Yeah.
I need time to think about a painting, to look at it. It's like troubleshoot issues, problems. I just came back from painting in northern Vermont, and I have some plein air pieces that I need to look at. I've got a couple that it was just so cold that they just need a few touches or cleaning up. And actually one I'm going to use to paint a small painting from.
I love the luxury of letting paintings sit, because I think they're done, and then I look at them a month later and it's like, oh man, they're not done.
Oh, I usually think my paintings stink, and then a month later I come take a look and it's like, well, it's not as bad as I thought.
Yeah. Well, that's because you're you.
I was painting up with Melanie Barash Levitt, and she said, oh, I like your paintings. And I was saying, oh God, they're horrible. But yeah, you bring them back, you take a look. Now I know I need to lighten the greens here. I'm going to mix some of that paint. I can sort of use that same color here.
Okay.
I should have more brushes out. I forgot. It's been a while since I painted with a brush. I usually have like 10 brushes in my hand. when I paint with a brush. This one's awfully too fat, but it's fun. I am going to be doing some more brush work. Because as I said, I want to get into glazing more.
Linda Marie Crabb says, I flew from Milan to Barcelona and back yesterday and was surprised both flights were completely full. Travel is taking off again, so hoping tourists start coming back to Italy. All right, Linda. Yeah, I think that's happening too. My flights were packed. And by the way, there are a lot of flights again, although I'm sure they're not as many as there were.
Did they require masks?
They did. There's still a national mask mandate, but that sounds like
I gotta tell you, my son just got COVID after all this time because a friend of his had flown in from California and did get COVID on the flight. Stayed in Manhattan with my son, and lo and behold, 2 days later, his friend got COVID. Ian is now just recovering from COVID.
Yeah. Well, and Ian is like Mr. Immune System. He works out. He's got muscles bigger than my brain.
Not bigger than your brain, dear sir.
Oh yeah, anything's bigger than my brain. Yeah. Well, I got it too. I had it, and it was pretty mild, most of it.
You're lucky. Yeah, my son-in-law had it. It was the Omicron, and so that was also mild.
Yeah, the Omicron seems to be pretty mild. All right. Well, I think we're going to run out of time here, Cindy. Why don't you come back on camera so everybody can meet you in case they tuned in late?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. But anyway, people can see. I mean, look at the difference with the brush. And I haven't even gotten to the ends, the details, versus what you do with a palette knife. So that's sort of why I wanted to show both.
Well, that was nice and smooth. Just moved that camera and there you are. Well, Cindy, I just want to tell everybody you've got a couple of videos out. I mentioned that earlier, but you have 2 palette knife painting videos. One is on still life and the other is on plein air painting. And so if you guys, and I got to tell you something, I don't know if you told me this, I think you did, but it may have been Michelle Byrne. It was Michelle Byrne. Michelle Byrne used to be almost exclusively a brush painter. And when she became a palette knife painter, she said, all of a sudden my paintings started flying off the shelves, that she couldn't keep them in stock. What say you? Oh,
the color. No, my paintings do really well. I go to these events. There are a lot more traditional painters. And I'd only do a few events a year. And I'll only go, leave the grandkids, leave my new puppy.
You got a puppy?
I got a puppy.
Where is he? Bring him on camera. We like puppies.
She is so shy. She's a little rescue. Hold on.
Of course. We love rescues.
Oh, come here, baby.
All right. We're waiting for the puppy. Yeah. Oh.
That's Willoughby.
Willoughby. How old is Willoughby?
4 months. There we go.
All right. Hi, Willoughby. Do you want a treat?
She is all trouble.
Oh.
She'll be the pup on the dining room table. She digs, she jumps, but she's a sweetheart.
All right. Well, now you're not going to be able to travel anymore.
Well, no, I have a deal. Actually, I am a puppy sitter during the week when my daughter and son-in-law are working because they also have a pup. So this is like puppy daycare. I've got puppy toys on the floor, grandchildren toys on the floor, everything. But when I travel, my daughter will take care of Willie.
All right. Well, Willie's a sweet dog.
He is.
All right. Nice meeting you, Willie. All right. Well, Cynthia Rosen, thank you so much for being on today. It was a pleasure. We learned about 2 different ways to start a painting, and you rock. You always rock. I'm always looking forward to seeing you. When will I see you next?
Fall Color Week.
Color Week.
I have events and a family gathering during the convention. I'll go to the convention in Denver. And I can't do the Adirondacks for the same reason this year, but I will go to Fall Color Week in Maine, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's going to sell out pretty quickly because it's, in Maine we have very limited attendance, so that's going to be fun. And just tell everybody real quickly your perception of Fall Color Week to somebody who never has been, because people can set up and paint next to you or other people who
Oh,
are prominent.
absolutely. These events, we all paint together.
Yeah.
We learn from each other, no matter what experience you do or don't have. And it's great. Look, I'm coming up from Virginia. I'm actually going to miss Vermont fall foliage in order to go to Fall Color Week in Maine.
Wow.
I'll have the fall colors there, plus the ocean. Can't can't beat it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the ocean is literally right out our back door, which is going to
Totally.
is really wonderful.
Can't wait.
All
And
right.
just a quick note, my still life video is a far better teaching video than the plein air one. Anybody knows we go paint plein air. It's a toss up whether it's going to be a good painting or not. And it's not that the still life is that much of a better painting, but a lot more instruction in it. I talk the whole way through exactly why I make what decision.
All right. Well, that's good. Well, that's at painttube.tv, the palette knife, and the one that you say is, I thought the first one was very good. So maybe you're being too harsh on yourself. Anyway, Cynthia, thank you. And thanks for sharing your puppy.